Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey everybody, good afternoon. Militiaman and Crew here today. It's the 30th and we're going to get started. So my Iraqi Dinar news, it says here today that Al Rafadain announces the departments that have begun activating the electronic collection system, also using dinar and not the dollar. It's pretty interesting that the Rafadain Bank has announced that. It's basically stating that there's a direct activation of the electronic collection system in a number of ministries, state institutions, and the private sector. So that's kind of a big deal because it's probably going to set a precedent for future other banks, or consecutively, probably quite quickly. In accordance with the government directives to implement electronic payment system and use of point of sale devices in all the ministries, their institutions, the private sector, collecting invoice amounts and fees, etc., etc., etc. So basically what they're trying to do is enable visitors to who wish to pay with cards can do so. To do what? To reduce cash. Looks like the number of departments have begun activating the electronic collection system, shifting from cash financial transactions to electronic, and all those funds will have be done through a modern system from the Rafadain Bank. So basically the process is going to continue. Interest is increasing, the pace of it is increasing, and new departments will be included in the short term. So that's awesome to see that happening. Then you have another one here today, was happened to be with the Parliamentary Finance, reveals the date when Baghdad will send the salaries of the region's employees. This particular one says the Kurdistan Regional Government at the end of the current month of October is to cover and disperse employees' salaries. They go on to say that the central government does not view these funds as being related to the salaries of the region. Why? Well, because they're rather considered them part of the obligation to one of their institutions, and this is the reason behind the delay in sending them. So something's going on with this 700 billion dinars for each batch. Basically, they say it's in a total of about 2 trillion dinar, but we also know that they're going to be doing some changes, I'm assuming, in the future, because they're not probably going to be using trillions. All right. The Ministry of Finance and Economy of the Kurdistan Regional Government, Sheikh Janab, who visited Baghdad earlier, was accompanied by a delegation with the Kurdistan government. They confirmed the existence of a joint understanding with the federal government to address the issue of these salaries of the employees within the region, okay? And they say it's outside the political differences. So obviously by the end of the month, and that looks like, what, tomorrow's the last day of the month, so we'll see what they do. It says here, it says Iraq is working to join the World Trade Organization. Well, we all know that his meeting starts tomorrow, the 31st, the 1st and the 2nd. And then also, I think you're going to find that there's a Baghdad fair starting on the 1st through the 7th. So an international fair. So we'll see how this goes. I don't have an article on that, but I do know that it's out there. I think it's because it's really fresh, to be fair. Director General of the Department of Foreign Economic Relations is talking with the Ministry of Commerce, the Deputy Director General of the World Trade Organization at the headquarters of the World Trade Organization in Geneva. What were they talking about? They were talking about Iraq's accession to the organization. So these meetings that are coming up tomorrow through the next 3 days, we've already talked about all that, but that's getting started tomorrow. This article is just a refresher, basically stating the same thing, that their next stage in completing the technical files required to be submitted to the organization's secretariat and preparing them in accordance with the organization's conditions and fruitful cooperation with international organizations supporting Iraq's accession to the organization and its quest to obtain full membership in the organization. So basically, this is where we're at. We're hoping that these guys get full accession. We believe that they need something that we're all waiting for prior to accession. We'll have to see. We do know that they talked about that the countries, not the countries, but Iraq, or the countries, forgive me, that are acceding to the World Trade Organization are to talk. I think it starts on the 1st for those folks to be speakers for each country that's involved. So we're going to see what the outcome is of that, and that's not taking us too long to get there, because next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to see if any of these countries, Iraq included, if they talk about a session. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. They're basically going to review the steps taken by the Iraqi Ministry of Trade to complete the technical files that must be submitted to the organization during the coming period. So if in fact that coming period was prior to this writing, because remember they said that they were in the acceleration mode a few months ago. I think it may have been not a few months, maybe I think it was in August. So we'll look and see how that turns out. So they're just basically moving forward with an international circumstance. Here, this article says the Prime Minister's advisor explains the importance of legislating the economic reform law. It says today, well, as of yesterday, the financial advisor to the Prime Minister, Mohammed Saleh, talking specifically what the importance of legislating this economic reform law. It says the government's current future economic vision has been touched upon by the government through many axes focused on describing the future of the economic system in the country. The description took its way in building a real partnership between the state and the private sector. Again, that's what we're waiting for, is the mix between the state and the private sector going international. It says that their aim is creating a gradual separation on relying on oil wealth revenues alone as a sole basis for financing productive activities in the economy. So we know that they have liquid natural gas they're going to be using in the future. We know that they have taxes and tariffs at the borders electronically. Those are going to be major income streams. So they're just reiterating this is what they're doing. They're in a partnership with the private sector, which has taken them down different paths today. They've issued some carbon bonds. They've been issuing reconstruction bonds because they're working towards market resources. So basically, the private sector will definitely be contributing to the financial and economic development of Iraq. So, and it'll probably be helping with that development fund, and it'll also increase direct financing from the government to meet the civil society needs. And basically, they're going to be strategizing to target small and medium-sized activities and others. I think we're going to find out that there's some things they're going to be talking about. And one of those things that we're hopefully waiting for is to get outside the remittances, but they go to direct banking. And we may have evidence of that. That's what they're talking about as early as this week. Okay, let's see. Productive. It says among the past in the government's role as an actual guarantor in supplying Western technology to private activity, especially in the industrial sector, agricultural industries, and other digital activities, stressing that a guarantor partnership for the supply of advanced technology to the country with financial government guarantees within the version of partnerships between the state and the private sector. So the state is going to give some guarantees to the private sector, so they're going to have some assurances. Obviously, they're going to have security and stability, hence why we talk about some of the things that we see with the Strategic Framework Agreement. We saw that there was about 30 different people that signed an agreement trying to get this, the U.S. out of the embassy out, and I don't think that went over very well, because 30 out of 300 and something people were the ones signed it. So I think it was just a little less than 10%. So I don't think that's going to have any headway. We'll get onto that later. But nonetheless, it says that they've did these bonds. They've moved on with the private sector and advanced external technology support. It says that the legislation of the economic reform law, which is the implementation of which will represent a new partnership in investing strategic economic activities, especially between the arms of the productive private sector and the government, to extend investment activities to wide areas such as unexploited natural resources and forms of jointly operated infrastructure. So we know that they have abundant natural resources. We know that they have a massive amount of infrastructure build out to do. And so all of these little things or these mechanisms that they have in place are going to be really gangbusters as far as I can tell. And it's pretty exciting times. It says Saleh reveals the mechanism for establishing sovereign funds, Well, everybody's heard of some of these countries in the world that have sovereign funds. Because why? Because they have abundant natural resources. They tap into those resources and do investments, etc., that help and benefit the people. And Iraq is going to be no different. It says the financial advisor to the Prime Minister, Saleh, revealed the mechanism for establishing sovereign funds. Basically, the oil prices have risen, and the budget goes toward filling the hypothetical deficit. So I don't think they're going to have a deficit ever again. I think they're going to move beyond that by far with all the income streams that they got coming online. And once they change the value of their currency, believe it or not, they won't be tapping into those dollars anymore. They're tapping into their reserves. So those reserves are just going to grow, and they're going to grow big. Okay, not to mention all the money that they've been clawing back over the last year or so. I think there was an article that came out. I don't think I have it with me today, but I think they were estimating almost like 450 billion that's going to be clawed back. So Iraq is not going to be a poor country. It's going to be filthy rich, as far as I can tell. The establishment of sovereign funds is approved if there's a surplus in the general budget for the 3 years. We all know that the 2023, 24, 25 budget has been approved back in June. We've been hopefully waiting to see them actually use some of those funds for projects and infrastructure. So we'll see how that turns out in the next few days. It says the establishment of the sovereign funds is approved if there is a surplus in the government and the general budget for the 3 years which exceeds the deficit and exceeds the balance. Then one can think about investing those surpluses in a sovereign wealth fund. He's basically stating in any case the characteristics of the fund are subject to investment data, economic development priorities in our country, and according to the government curriculum. So basically they're ready to do it. They're doing it. That's what they're doing. Let's see here. It says Al-Shamari, there's no U.S. sanctions on Iraq at all, in their negotiations with Iran to create a platform for currencies other than the dollar. So that's the headline. No U.S. sanctions on Iraq and negotiations with Iran to create a platform for currencies other than the dollar. So here again, what are we going to be talking about? I think that they're going to be talking about not only using the Toman, I guess, is what they said, and then the Iraqi dinar. We had the euro, the UAE dirham, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to be talking about doing that. It says there were major money laundering operations that benefited countries and organizations and corrupt people. Therefore, what are they going to do? They're going to quit using the dollar, and they're going to use other currencies. And we know that they're in the process of that. And they have an end day of sometime around January 1st where they will just cease to exist to be able to use the dollar. Sorry about that. Let's see, it says there was the average value of the bilateral free trade between Iraq and Iran is approximately about $20 million a day if we adopt the annual trade volume of about, they say, between 5.5 and $6 billion. And they note that there are negotiations with the Iranian side to create a platform for new currencies other than the dollar to secure intra-trade between the two countries. It's called Visa Direct. It's a new banking service launched by one of the most important digital banks in the country under the supervision of the central bank and in cooperation with Visa International. Kind of big, right? International. It says Visa Direct is a banking service that will provide banking service to local merchants who transfer small amounts of money outside the country within 30 minutes while sitting at home. And this will help in the collapse of the black market prices. That's their goal, get rid of the black market. And I think the corrupt basically see that their cash cow's about ready to go bye-bye. It says the collapse of the black market prices and the speculation of speculators, that's going to go away. The Visa Direct service is a basic and strategic chart or start of the banking and financial system in Iraq. I like that statement because it says that Visa Direct is a service, is a basic and strategic start of the banking and financial system. So here we go. They're getting ready to do some, likely some international business. Central bank, here it says the central bank is unable to defend exchange rates. What does that mean? Fairly certain with what I've just been telling you, with all the, when they stop the dollar auctions and the black market goes away, they're not going to be spending $200 million of reserves every day, or close to it, right? Up to that much money will be safe. They won't be spending. They won't be tapping into their reserves. Okay, all that extra money is going to be going right into their slush fund. So look at it that way. The central bank, for its part, has not yet been able to carry out a successful intervention that works to correct exchange rates and stabilize markets. Well, they haven't adjusted the exchange rate yet. If they do that, I think that black market, like they said, it's going to go away. It says, defending exchange rates. Look, once they start having all that income, extra income, and their coffers start growing, Iraq will be able to defend their currency, which they will probably do very well, because you're going to have the income from the oil. You're going to have the income that's similar to oil, which comes from the taxes and tariffs at the borders. And you're going to end up in a not too distant future, the liquid natural gas. They'll be saving $4 billion alone a year from Iran, because they'll be producing their own. So all that money is going to come back. They'll be able to defend their currency. It could very well be a very strong and powerful country. And things just get cheaper. The infrastructure gets rebuilt far cheaper when they have a better exchange rate. So that's the focus here. It looks really, really good. Recall that there's the Silk Road Initiative, which is also, there is a portion of Iraq is called the Development Road Initiative. They're going basically off of the fact that the political forces are recalling the nature of the challenges facing Iraq in the event of a vote to close the American embassy and its repercussions, which are not possible. So they're addressing the fact that these guys want to close the embassy, but the fact remains is that the United States represents security to investors, and they're basically talking about, like, look, it's probably not possible that they can do that, even if they wanted to, under the circumstances. But, and again, Souder has his way of doing things. Is there a political component there? Maybe so, very much so. One of the things I wanted to focus in on here, it says there are no sanctions imposed on Iraq by the U.S. Treasury, but sometimes there is a tightening of standards to deliver potential political messages, indicating that the previous government did not prepare the requirements for implementing the platform system. So basically they're going to have a new system for their new currencies. They're stating here, this is only the first time, I think they say it twice today in different articles, that there are no sanctions imposed on Iraq. And so if that's the case, and the U.S. Treasury gives the green light, then wow, we really have nothing holding us back. We're going to the WTO tomorrow. They're going to be there for a few days. Their next meeting this year is only going to be out, I believe the last meeting for the year before they go on vacation is on the 8th. So sometime we should have some information on where they stand. And it should be quite interesting and kind of a nail biter, to be fair. Here, this particular article says that, I already mentioned it, that there's only 32 Iraqi parliamentarians out of 329 that submitted a request to the presidency for the parliament to close the American embassy in Baghdad and expel Ambassador Alina Romanowski. Right? Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. This gentleman basically states that he stressed the need to protect its U.S. embassy diplomatic personnel and not be exposed to them by the shameless militias that want to undermine the security and safety of Iraq in the event of a vote on the resolution. They basically go on to say that the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad announced in a statement last week the departure of non-essential employees at the embassy and the U.S. consulate in Erbil due to increasing threats. So, but have they shut it down yet? They haven't done that yet, and maybe they won't. Member of Parliamentary Finance says that they have a great reluctance in the budget decisions and agreements on the part of the region. It says here, with regard to the delay in releasing financial amounts to the Kurdistan's region, because the money filed between the government of the center and the region often arises after approving the budget. Well, the 2023 4 and 5 budget was approved in June, and they are waiting to see what they're going to allocate and spend in those projects, on their projects, out of that budget. It says right here, it says there are obligations under budget decisions and political agreements as some of these obligations are fulfilled with the regional government towards the central government in terms of oil export dues and the fulfillment of these obligations, which is witnessing great reluctance on the part of the region. Look, these guys they had like ghost employees. They had all kinds of different circumstances where they fudging numbers for many, many years. When they go to electronic system, a lot of that stuff's going to get exposed on who did what and where did it go. Okay, and it may not look good on some people. So we're going to have to see how this turns out. But I'm pretty sure that everybody that has any corruption in their past is probably going to get exposed to some degree, or at least they better figure out what they're going to do about it, because getting all those extra salaries, etc., and when you weren't supposed to, it's not going to look good politically. I don't think the citizens are going to stand for that anymore. The next thing here is getting to my last bit. It's the government dollar, a hollow announcement and new fatigue for travelers. So this weekend, they basically came out and launched an electronic reservation service to sell the dollar legitimately to travelers at the official price set by the central bank. Nothing uncommon about that, but we all know that we've talked about it before, that they were only allowed the amount of about $3,000 as opposed to $10,000. But here we are, that they're allowed to get $3,000 US. They can put that on MasterCards, and they can be dispersed at different outlets at Baghdad International Airport exclusively. I guess they're having some problems because they're not getting enough. They're only issuing so many cards per day. So they're probably going to have to up that game. But in reality speaking, eventually getting the dollar is not going to be a major issue because it's legitimate. The electronic platforms will make sure of it. And anybody that needs it, they should be able to get it. And interestingly enough, most likely they won't be getting cash. They'll be getting dollars loaded onto a card. So it's a digital situation. So instead of getting physical cash, they're going to be getting loaded on a card. The central bank's latest step to overcome exchange offices in 4 airports, so it wasn't just Baghdad. There's Najaf, Erbil, and Basra, and it looks like they've had great success. That's what they expect if the process is implemented correctly. The step of opening outlets, new facilities at the airport will have positive effects, this gentleman's talking about, especially since it takes a short time for the traveler to receive his share of the dollar. What I found fascinating in this particular piece is that at the very end it says here, the Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, will announce this week a new banking service for small merchants that will lead to a decrease in the exchange rate and facilitate their work procedures. Well, if they go to a direct banking system with the small merchants, we can start clicking our heels, because that's going to be outside the remittances. Direct banking is going to be what it is. They're not going to be using the dollar auctions anymore. They're going to be using their own currency. And I think that's where we're headed. I think that's what their whole goal was. And if they have a new sound banking system that is outside the dollar, all better for the citizens of Iraq and hopefully for the world. Because we all know that back in the UN Assembly, they talked about the fact that Iraq was going to be bringing confidence to banks like JP Morgan, and they were going to effectively fix the financial system of the world. And Iraq is going to be one of those countries that's going to help do that. And I'm looking very, very forward to it. And I hope you guys all are too. Thank you for being here with me this afternoon into this early evening. If you're new and you'd like to subscribe, please do. Hit that like button. And if you'd like to help keep our channel going with no advertising during my message, that would be awesome. We have different venues, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle, to help keep this content going. I think you guys understand what it means to us. Appreciate it very much, you guys. Have a great day. Thank you. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.